Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to chat about my favorite books from 2023 and the faith books that I read. So originally I was going to do all the books that I read, but I read like 40 books. Go on my Instagram if you want to see all the books I read. I have a highlight and a little snippet of what I thought of the books. And yeah, so I figured we would just get right into it. I do have my reading journal here just to give me more information as I chat. I do plan on doing a video going over like how I plan on reading more books this year, my reading goals and all that fun stuff, TBRs, different things like that. So that will come probably next week, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, for this year, almost all the books I read on my Kindle except for the faith books. So literally every book I read was in not a physical book. I did not touch any of my physical books. I have 2 more bookshelves in another room full of books that I have not read. So I started a few, I just never finished them. Did not DNF, well, I DNF'd a couple, but I did not DNF the books that I was reading and enjoying. I'm a mood reader, and yeah. I'll go in order of when I read things. So the first book I read of 2023 was The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, and I really enjoyed that book. Let me look at my book to see what it was about. It was a clean read. I don't remember the plot. I just remember that she was a bodyguard for a guy. There was a little bit of fake dating. I just remember I really enjoyed it. I like her writing. It's not as romancy as some of these other romance books are. They have more drama. They're not like rom-coms when you're reading it and you're swooning and it's like there's more plot to the story than just the romance. The next book that I really enjoyed was a thriller suspense, and it was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and I thought that book was really great. Not what I expected at all. It was interesting reading it because I didn't figure out what was going on till like the end, but good. I don't even know how to describe what the book was about without giving away too much. But yeah, it's still not one of my favorite thrillers. Like my favorite thrillers that I've ever read is The Silent Patient by, I don't remember his name, but it's called The Silent Patient. I wouldn't consider it clean. I think a lot of these like suspense thriller, they always got something a little in there, but The Silent Patient was one of my favorite. It's about this woman who, after murdering her husband, stops speaking, and she's been silent for many, many years, and now there's a new psychiatrist starting at the facility that she's in, and he's trying to get her to talk. So that is what the book is about. Amazing. One of my favorite thrillers. So there's that. The third book, I'll talk about my faith books after. I'm just going to go through all these books. The next book that I really, really enjoyed was The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. It was another like thriller suspense, and it's about a woman and her husband, and then there's like another lady who like is the perspective that we're getting it at, and it's just very interesting. There until I got halfway through the book, I was so frustrated and angry because I was like, why are these things happening? Like I was just really upset at one of the characters, but then halfway through the book I was like, oh, okay. But excellent book. I really enjoyed it. I read it fairly quickly. It was one of those books where I kept bothering my family to update them on the book, and that's how you know I really like a book, if I'm bothering you about it and constantly telling you what the book was about. And then after like that book, I will say that's kind of where I really started finding more clean authors, closed door authors, because before that I had read a few other books and I was just kind of getting upset that I couldn't find, like if I did read a book that was clean, it was not the best. So I really went on a journey to find some good books, and I did. I found some really great authors that I enjoyed. Emma St. Clair being one of them. I read Royally Rearranged, and that was a great book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny, it was cute, it was clean, and that's all I gotta say. It's about a girl who all her life knew she was supposed to be marrying this guy, and he does not want to get married, and she comes to find out it was like an arranged marriage, and even though she knew that, she thought that they had a connection. So it's kind of about that, and they're of royal whatever. And I really enjoyed it. A little cheesy. A lot of these cleaner romances sometimes can be a little cheesy, as can any romance be. But I thought it was really good. Another book I really enjoyed was Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams, and that was my favorite book this year. Sarah Adams stole my heart with that book. That was my favorite book that I read. I forced my sister to read it, and that was actually a book I purchased on my Kindle before I got Kindle Unlimited. I bought it in person. Like, I loved this book. It was so good that I was like, I need to have this always. I do plan on rereading it this year because I really, really did enjoy it. I love the characters. I loved the, not even fake dating, it was kind of like coaching to date theme of the book. It's about, is her name Annie? Her name's Annie, his name's Will. This is like the second book in her series. I think the first book is called When in Rome. That's the name of their hometown. And he was the bodyguard of the person in that book. And so he's just helping coach her because everyone sees her as like sweet little Annie, everyone's looking at her like the little kid that's never going to grow up, but she's grown. So I really enjoyed this book. My favorite book of the year. If you take anything from this video, read this book. It made me enjoy Sarah Adams more. I read a ton more of her books this year too because of that. I did find other good authors that I enjoy. Melanie Jacobson and Anna Conwell are other book authors that I really enjoyed. So yeah, we found some good stuff this year. So I'm really excited for this year. I've already read a couple of books from Melanie Jacobson, and now I'm reading a book from Anna Conwell. So I'm just like continuing this like clean reading journey, and I'll talk more about that in my next video. But let's get on to the faith books. As you guys know, I had a goal of reading one faith book a month, so 12 faith books for the year of 2023. I did not accomplish that goal. That did not happen, and I was very upset at myself for that, but it's okay. Let's talk about the books I did read. I don't remember what order I read them, but this is Made Like Martha by Katie M. Reed, and it says, "Good news for the woman who gets things done." So I'll just read this really quick. It says, "Do you want to sit at Jesus' feet as Mary did, but you feel the need to get things done? In Made Like Martha, Katie M. Reed invites you to exchange try-hard striving for hope-filled freedom without abandoning your doer's heart in the process." So it's just really about learning to rest, finding balance, and saying no when it's appropriate, especially for those that feel like they always have to do, or if you're even like a people pleaser. This was a really great book. I enjoyed it. It did take me a little longer, but I have a whole bunch of little like tabs here. I really enjoyed this book. Another book I read was Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghettis, Understanding and Delighting in Your Differences by Bill and Pam Farrell. It's a husband and wife couple, and it's just basically a book explaining how the man thinks and how a woman thinks and how it relates to marriage. They do have a version that's for singleness, which I just bought the married one. I thought it was really good at explaining how men think and how women think and how differently we actually think. If you are single desiring to be married, I think this is a good book, especially because communication is very important in marriage. So this is a good book, and I truly did enjoy it. This last book I read, this is not a book I recommend to everyone. I think specifically this is a book for women who are married, who are struggling in their marriage, and are able to set aside their feeling. And I think that's like my warning for this book. This is not my copy of the book. This is, I can't read you anything from it because I don't actually have my copy. But actually, I found my copy, so I can share some notes. But basically, this book is written by Debbie Pearl, and there's a lot of controversy I've learned around her and her husband. But we're gonna push those thoughts aside because there is a lot of truth in her book. Does she say everything with grace and love? No, a lot of times it's just straight truth, and she's just smacking you around with that truth, and I think sometimes it's okay. There were a lot of things I learned from this. Like, I've learned that I can be very, I'm not even married, and I learned from this. I know my mom read this, and she wishes she would have read this years ago, even before reading this book. Like, that she's learned, where she's like, if I would have read this and taken it to heart and knew those things before, things would have just been much more smoother. But I think she makes a lot of very great points. She's just not very gentle, and I think you need to be okay with that. Can some of her advice be a little extreme? Yes. And she does address like abuse and all that stuff. So, yeah, let me read. Can't remember if it's this book or the Liberated Through Submission book, but I think it's Liberated Through Submission. She mentions how women constantly say like, I need a strong man. If not, like, you'll walk over him or something like that. And it's because in our hearts, we know we want to be in control. We don't want to submit. That's why a lot of women say they need a strong man. But we just need to learn to submit. But that's a different topic. But here, you are inferior to none as long as you function within your created nature. For no man can do your job, and no man is complete without his wife. You were created to make him complete, not to seek personal fulfillment parallel to him. A woman trying to function like a man is as ridiculous as a man trying to be like a woman. A unisex society is a senseless society, a society dangerously out of order. I do think there's a lot of truth in here, and there were definitely some parts where I was like, okay, I don't 100% agree with her with this, or I feel like she could have said something differently. Like here she says, you serve Christ by serving your husband, whether your husband deserves it or not. And I know in Liberated Through Submission, she touches on that a lot. And I think if you are the type of person that gets triggered easily, offended easily, emotional easily when reading something and you don't necessarily agree with it, or it stings you, this ain't the book for you. This is not the book for you. I'm not mentioning this book to tell people to read it and we can have arguments about it, or so you can be offended by it, or you can think that, wow, because I enjoyed this book and I found truth in it, that I must agree with every single thing that they say, or that now you know how I think and what I believe and all that stuff because I found some truth in this. That's not why I'm sharing this book. I'm sharing this book because I found some truth in it and it could be helpful to someone struggling in their marriage. Here she talks about reactions defining you. A wise woman does not dream of what could have been. She does not see herself as God's gift to men. Therefore, she is joyful and content in her present circumstance. Reactions. They are emotional responses breaking loose like wild horses when we feel hurt, cheated, used, or misunderstood. Your reactions break you loose from your social inhibitions and manifest who you really are inside and what you really believe at your core level. And this is something I know for me, I've been praying for this and constantly that the Lord would help me to respond versus react in situations when people say things to me or whatever. And that I would like take a moment to think and meditate before I even respond to, because I think we can be quick to respond and that's not the kind of person I want to be. I want to be slow to anger, not quick to anger and quick to react and quick to yell and quick to do all these crazy things. And something I thought was interesting, because we did watch some videos on her and her husband, is her husband, he preached at a marriage conference, and one night spoke to the women, one night spoke to the men. We watched both videos. What I found interesting was he told the men it is not their place to demand submission from their wife. Nowhere in the Bible does he say that it's the man's job to make sure his wife submits to him. Submission is between wife and God. Like, that's something he points out. He was like, God gives him other things to do. He's supposed to love. He's supposed to provide. He's supposed to whatever. And he does call out the men and say, like, if your wife is not submitting to you, he was like, why is that the case? He was like, who are you? How are you treating her? How are you acting? Do you deserve her submission? And he was like, whether she submits or not, you are to do these things. And also, and for the women, he also said, whether this man does X, Y, and Z, you are to submit, because that is between you and the Lord. So I just thought that was very interesting. I'm going to stop talking about her because I feel like this can get me in trouble. But all I know of her is what I've read in this book and what I've seen in those two videos. The last book I started reading, which I'm finishing this year, is Liberated Through Submission, God's Design for Freedom in All Relationships by P.B. Wilson. This is a reread. This would be my third time rereading this. Last year when I reread it, it reopened my eyes because I had forgotten a lot of things about this, and I just really enjoy it. Like, I like what it says here. She says, yielding to leadership. Like, both these books go hand in hand because they talk a lot about submission. She talks about submission for the married man, the married woman, and the single woman. And I think that's important because we all are called to submit. And God has an order of things. And yeah, so I'll read a little bit here. It says, yielding to leadership makes the most sense when exercised under the ultimate authority of Christ. Submission most certainly works best when faith is a part of the equation. It takes faith to believe that God is correcting a relationship, situation, or circumstance when all outward signs show the opposite. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Looking for that other thing I mentioned. Many Christians are living their lives in contempt of God because they refuse to surrender to an order that God, not man, has established. So she says, consider a statement commonly made by women, Christian and non-Christian alike. I believe it's a garden conversation instituted by Eve and passed on through the generations. The statement is, I need a strong man. Have you ever heard a woman say, I need a wimp? But if you were to hear the rest of the sentence, it would go like this. I need a strong man because if he is not strong, I'll walk all over him. A woman innately knows her desire to control. She longs to find a man who will take charge. It's unlikely she'll find one unless he is submitted to God's word. And I think that's so interesting. But also, we're also less likely to find that man if we're not submitted to God himself either. Because, like we said, we know we like to control. We do. We like to control. I like to control. That's a big issue I have. I will take control of a situation so quick. And I'm learning not to do that. I don't need to be doing all these things, especially if there's a man around. Like, he can go. He can go throw out that garbage. He can go move that table. Like, there's no need for me to do things if I don't need to. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Just a very quick little video on some of my favorite books this year. And hopefully I read a lot this year. I have a mighty goal, but I'm not going to let my goal drive me to read because that's when it stops being fun. I'm hoping that naturally, since I'm finding the kind of books that I enjoy, that I would just read more. And I want to read more faith books because this is the time to do it. I have the time. I have the time. So why not spend my time trying to grow in the Lord and do the things that he has called me to do, which is grow in him, serve him, and share his word. I will chat with you guys in my next video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will chat with you guys in my next one.